Good evening. We are going to go ahead and get started. It is 6 o'clock. And this is the regularly scheduled City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, June 6, 2023. And I'm calling the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask our city clerk to please take roll.
Barbara Bynum.
Here.
J. David Reed.
Present.
Dave Frank.
Present.
Doug Glassbell.
Present.
Ed Ulibarri.
Here.
All city councilors are present.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda, including any additions or deletions?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda tonight is the call for public comment for non-agenda items. So before I read all this legalese, I'll first see if anyone is here to address council about something that isn't on the agenda. If you want to talk to us about something that's an agenda item, we'll have an opportunity for every agenda item for public comment. But is there anyone, if you could raise your hand, if you're here for public comment for a non-agenda item? Okay, I don't see any tonight, and so I'm going to skip reading all the legal language that we normally would read before public comment, and we will move on to item 6. Item 6 is the consent agenda, and this includes two things tonight. It's consideration of the minutes from our May 16th regular meeting and consideration of the cancellation of the regular council meeting. Currently, it would have been scheduled for Tuesday, July 4th, but it does take a vote of council to cancel that. So would someone please make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
We have a first and a second. So your computer should pop up in just a second so that you can vote electronically. We're not seeing it. Okay. Just when we get things figured out, we upgrade the technology just a little more, and I understand some new plugs were moved around today, so bear with us while we get this figured out. And if we can't do this, Lisa, we can go back to voting aloud. Okay, for this one's usually really easy. How about, can we, instead of a roll call, can I just say all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Are there any in opposition? Please say nay. So the consent agenda passes unanimously. And we'll go on to the next item, number 7, and that's our Main Street closure. This needs council consideration, and this is for a Habitat for Humanity event. It is the closure of the 500 block of East Main Street and Compadre Avenue from North 1st Street to Centennial Plaza from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Saturday, June 24th of this year. It would be for the Habitat for Humanity Rock the Block event. And I will turn it back to our city clerk, Lisa Del Piccolo, who handles all these kind of event permits and everything, to tell us a little bit more about this and how it needs council's deliberation and consideration.
Thank you, Mayor Bynum. As you stated, Habitat for Humanity did apply to close Main Street, the 500 block only of Main Street, on June 24th for the Rock the Block event. By the time we set up the closure and take down the closure, it's longer than 10 hours in length, and that does require city council approval. And so we discussed this at a previous work session. Council wanted to know that everyone had been contacted, and we did put items in the meeting packet showing that all businesses were contacted, and Habitat also provided a spreadsheet kind of showing support. And we do have Amanda Gearhart and Whitney LaChapelle here with Habitat for Humanity, and they can answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any counselors have questions for our event planners, organizers on this request? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna complain because I believe we're gonna be out of town.
I wasn't going to complain, but I was going to note that unfortunately, we're going to all miss it.
Yeah, we do have it. We do have a statewide conference, so.
Next year.
You aren't going to the statewide conference, so you'll represent us?
Sure.
Okay, good deal. So no questions, it looks like. How about public comment? Like I said, we take public comment on each agenda item, so if anyone from the public wishes to speak on this, now would be the time. I do not see anyone, and so I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the closure of 500 block of East Main Street, Uncompadre Avenue from North First Street to Centennial Plaza from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, June 24th, 2023.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any further deliberation? Seeing none, it looks like our electronic voting is working, so use that. And don't forget that you need to vote, and then down in the bottom right corner, you need to click on the save button to record your vote.
Barry.
Can you, did you think you voted?
It just said something that, load next 25. I was sitting there going, duh, what did I do wrong?
Did you vote in the affirmative on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that passes unanimously.
When I went to save it,
Okay.
that's what it did.
Oh, look at that. Okay. Passes unanimously one way or the other on that one. What, 4, it's 5, it's good. Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys very much for coming. I know that was probably really exciting to watch. You are always welcome to stay for the rest of our city council meeting, but I want you to know that we don't consider it rude if you get up and walk out at this point, so whatever you want to do, okay? Okay, moving on, our next item is item 8, special events alcohol permit approval. Oh, well, you want to stick around for this one.
gonna say,
For Habitat for Humanity.
thing.
Yeah, you know. And this is council consideration of the special event permit application from Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club to sell and serve alcohol in conjunction with the closure of the 500 block of East Main Street for the Habitat for Humanity Rock the Block event on Saturday, June 24th. So, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor Bynum. As you already stated, this is for a special events alcohol permit for the Rock the Block event. The permittee would be Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club. We did put up a poster for the 10 days as required by state statute, and we did not receive any comments.
Okay. Any questions from council members about this special events permit? Okay. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the special events permit for Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club to sell and serve alcohol in conjunction with the closure of the 500 block of East Main Street on Saturday, June 24th, 2023.
Second?
We have a first and a second, and please vote electronically. Hey, look at that. Fantastic. It passes unanimously with full support of the council. We hope you guys have a great event. And it sounds like we're kind of sad that we will miss it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is item 9, ordinance 2628 on first reading. This is council consideration of an ordinance amending city building and fire regulations and adopting by reference the 2018 editions of the International Building Code, the International Mechanical Code, the International Residential Code, the International Fuel Gas Code, the International Plumbing Code, the International Existing Building Code, the International Property Maintenance Code, the International Fire Code, and the International Energy Conservation Code, and providing penalties for violations, And I will ask Chief Building Official Archie Byers, in conjunction with Deputy City Manager Ann Morgenthaler and City Attorney Ben Morris, to introduce this item.
Excellent, thank you. I'll start, and Archie Byers will come up, and Ben Morris, of course, please chime in. We have been working on this project to update our building codes, as you know. We've talked about it at a few work sessions. We had a public open house for the purpose of sharing this information with the public, and now it's the first reading of the ordinance. It will require 2 readings to adopt, so this is the first time that you'll see it here at a council meeting, and then you'll see it again at the next council meeting for second reading if you desire to approve it on first reading tonight. We currently use the 2003 versions of the building codes, and we're proposing to update to the 2018 version of all of the building codes that Mayor Bynum just listed. Archie's here to give you a general overview of this process, and if you have any specific questions, please ask him. Archie, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you for City Council. Tonight we're here to talk about the update to the 2018. It's been at work session. There have been no changes since work session. We're excited about this. It's a new building code. It brings us, as we've stated earlier, it brings us in compliance with, or not compliance, but it brings us sort of in concert with all the regional building departments. I just heard this week that the county is now looking at trying to get it in to meet this deadline that the state put on us to adopt one of the most 3 recent energy efficiency codes. And they are also going to adopt or looking at adopting or considering adoption of the 2018. So that'll put us in even better position for our builders hyper locally in terms of the guys who build in the city and in the county. And it's going to be an even better thing in terms of consistency across the board from the high end of the valley, Ridgeway, through Delta. And although we don't do much with Mesa County does send a lot of the subcontractors down to this community to build. So we'll see similar code requirements and a deeper code knowledge based on one single code, which is really what our regional building officials have been talking about since I started back in 2006. And frankly, this is the closest we have gotten to it, which feels good to all of us. Are there any questions?
Archie, are we on track to meet the state's deadline for adoption of the updated energy conservation code?
Yes, we are. As long as, if council votes to approve or just consider yes tonight and we make it through the second reading on the 16th, July 1st is the deadline.
Wonderful, thank you.
Archie, I just wanted to point out that we do not do the electrical, and we don't do plumbing either?
No, we perform plumbing inspection services. The electrical that's correct on the electrical. We defer to the state, and so state provides plumbing inspection services. The city of Montrose has opted out of the state performing the plumbing inspections, and we provide plumbing inspections for the city of Montrose, and actually on gas line inspections also.
Okay, so it's just electrical, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Done by the state. Could you give a little overview just for information purposes of where the building code comes from and which?
Well, the building code actually, the ICC is the International Code Council, which is an organization of business like anything else really, but it's an organization of code officials. And the code adoption process comes from you and I actually, or anybody for that matter. Anybody can submit a code change or modification to the code. You would write it, and just as we'd submit any kind of change, it goes to a committee. There's a series of committees, I believe 13 in the ICC, based on the individual disciplines for energy, structural, non-structural, life safety, other things. And they consider it. If they agree with it and approve it, then it goes to assembly meeting that happens once every 3 years where you present in front of a group similar to this. And then other members of the group can stand up and either agree, disagree, or ask for an amendment to it. And then it's voted on, and then it goes back to the whole body of the group, of which all the participating jurisdictions, similar to Montrose, are voting members. And we, as a group, vote on all those code changes every 3 years. Organizations like the Colorado chapter of the ICC, which is Colorado is a pretty progressive state when it comes to code development. We have a lot of people who are actively involved in that process here in Colorado. And our chapter, the Colorado chapter, is pretty good at sending out voting guides. So they'll give you a huge guide on all the changes, pros and cons, why you might consider voting for it, why you might not consider voting for it. And then you can vote as a body. Both Chad and I are voting members for the city of Montrose. So it happens through people such as myself, people such as you, and industry professionals who are involved in manufacturing, product development, and so forth.
It's a great explanation. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay.
Does the new code currently authorize the building official to approve some like new types of construction, for example, compressed adobe block? If they provide you with the information necessary for the building official, because some of that stuff that they come out with building techniques aren't always in the building code, and they don't have, and I just want to make sure that for in case if there's something new, that we have the authorization to either approve it or decline it.
Absolutely, Ed, you're correct. There's a code section in every one of the codes called alternate methods of construction and materials and design. So it's a process by which you can, or an applicant can apply for this alternative methods of construction, materials, and design. And we would review it and might ask for some, pertinent questions related to what they're asking for or what kind of material they're doing. And that's simply designed, as you explained. The code can't anticipate all the technological updates, advancements in materials and design and construction methods. So it's designed to give us flexibility for new materials, new methods of construction, and so forth and so on.
Thanks, Archie.
You did an open house for the community on May 22nd to present this and hear questions and comments. How'd that go?
Well, I was
you were
I was sick, so
That's right.
I had an illness that kept me away. It put me on the sidelines. So, and from what I've heard and what Sharon told me, it was well received. They did a great job of presenting, and all indications are that it was a success.
Great.
In addition, I'll add, there were no requests to make modifications to what we proposed in this ordinance and shared at the meeting. And so there have not been any changes to the ordinance since you've seen it at work session either, but it was a nice little meeting in the community room. I think we had 15 to 20 people there. The Montrose Daily Press was there, and good questions, and we followed up with a few of them after the meeting.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments or questions from council? Okay, then I will see, thank you, Archie. It
Thank
sounds
you.
great. If we are holding a hearing on this item, and that is a more formal process for public input. So I'll open a hearing, and I'll ask if there's any public comment during this hearing time. I do not see any, so I'll close the hearing. And I'm going to ask council to please remember to make sure your microphones are on and speak into them. We're having some audio trouble picking up everybody. So make sure you're speaking right into a microphone that's on.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve and pass ordinance 2628 on first reading as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second and no further deliberation. So please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Okay, moving on to item 10. This is wastewater pretreatment expense authorization, and this is council's consideration of the approval of $120,000 in expenditures to assist with the construction of wastewater pretreatment infrastructure at the new Shelter Distilling headquarters. And City Manager Bill Bell is going to tell us more about this request.
I think Scott Murphy, our city engineer, and I will tag team this one. So I'll have Scott first talk about the project itself, and then I can answer any financial questions or anything related to the business development side.
Great.
Thank you, Bill. So as you're likely aware, Shelter Distilling is a distillery, production and restaurant that's moving to Montrose. It's about a 15,000 square foot facility. They've broken ground. They're constructing out in Colorado Outdoors. We've been working with their owner and a brewery wastewater consultant, which was really unique. They actually live here in Montrose, and they've helped to write the manual on industrial pretreatment with regard to breweries. So we were pretty lucky there. We got to meet in person. But over the last year and a half or so, we've been working through that and came up with a good plan for their industrial pretreatment management of a wastewater management of their wastewater streams.
Time out, hang on for 1 second. Pre-treatment of their industrial wastewater streams. Can you say, like, does that mean the junk they are done, like, can you put that in, like, really basic layman terms?
Yeah, totally. So when breweries operate, they produce a lot of
Sludge?
bugs.
Leftover?
Trying
Junk?
to not use fancy words. They produce a lot of, waste. Think of like spent grain, things of that sort. And in their wash downs, it can produce all these things that are a biochemical oxygen demand is what it's called. But it's essentially demand that would put demand on the treatment plant to be treated. And it's pretty large. So if a brewery of this size were to come in and not do any pretreatment at all and just dump all of their waste stream into our sewer system, it would be the equivalent of about 10% of our treatment plant's capacity.
Okay, so like our treatment plant can handle it when we do a little home brew at home and we put that down the kitchen sink, not a problem. But you're saying this is such a big operation.
Yep.
Okay.
At this scale, the city is interested in doing what you can, because there's a lot you can do on site relatively easily to actually reuse or benefit from that, or get it as a byproduct that can be used by farmers and things of that sort, to keep benefit to the community and not dump it into the stream, not have to pay for it, because if they dump it into there, they have to pay for what they dump into there. So, side streaming that, getting that controlled at the facility level keeps it out of the treatment plant, protects our capacity, which is a good thing just because the cost of expanding treatment plants just only goes up over time. But also preventing any upsets. So if there's any chemicals or anything, we need to make sure that they don't come into the waste stream and kill our treatment plant, which is a biological process. So if they have pH issues or disinfectants or things that would get in and actually kill the bugs that are doing the beneficial use or beneficial work down the treatment plant, then we could get into compliance issues with the treatment plant and have a pretty serious problem. So when big users like this come in, we work with them to make sure that their process is doing everything they can to protect our interests and assets, and it has the dual benefit of protecting their interests as well, because they're not getting hit with fines and not getting hit with really large organic loading bills, because again, they would otherwise pay for every pound of loading they send to the treatment plant to be treated. Does that answer the kind of general question?
Yeah, that really helps me understand what we're talking about. Thanks.
So, again, we were really fortunate to have them to work with. They're excellent to work with to develop the plan for their industrial pretreatment. Through this, we developed a MOU with their design team that outlined all these various parameters. I outlined them in the memo, but essentially the kind of things that industrial pretreatment looks like is side streaming of waste, how they handle their waste, reuse their waste, flow equalization. We don't want large amounts. We don't want big slugs of heavy loading coming and then there's nothing. The bugs down at the treatment plant, they ramp up to that, but then they lose that food if that supply is inconsistent, and then that can create problems with the process as well, and things go anaerobic and things of that sort. pH adjustment to make sure that the pH is correct as it comes out. Heated water reuse, they're not putting excessive temperature into our system could deform pipes or again upset the treatment process. Grease separation, effluent limits, sampling and how we analyze it and bill for everything, and then permitting. So pretty broad, and we've never had a facility of this scale in our community, so this was a great model for future use if others are interested in this area, because it's essentially represents the state of the art, and again, we were lucky enough to have the people that knew what they were doing to work with them to get to that point.
And it's really their use of like I mean, we had Russell Stover here, and they were a large manufacturing building, but they weren't doing the same kind of manufacturing that was putting stuff back into the water. I mean,
they were somewhat similar. There was just a different type of loading.
Okay.
But they actually had a permit as well. A little less sophisticated than this one because it was just from an older era when the regulations that surround this. EPA has industrial pretreatment regulations that govern a lot of this stuff as well. Because they're also interested in making sure that our treatment plant is protected.
Okay, so they had something similar at the Russell Stover factory
Yep,
for
again,
all those years?
Not as robust as this, given it was 20 plus years ago. But yeah, they held a wastewater permit, and then when the facility left, that just lapsed.
50 years ago.
Was it?
It's when they first came,
I
but
would say
anyway.
20 plus, because then I
Then you're right. Thanks for letting me keep interrupting you with my questions, Scott.
Yep, no,
Sorry about
absolutely.
that.
That's great.
So it sounds like the economic benefit to the city for helping with this is far outweighing any kind of cost to us.
So, yeah, I would say we always look for twofers. This is probably a threefer. So we are interested in protecting the city's treatment plant from a operation and, the biological process standpoint. We're interested in protecting the treatment plant from a capacity standpoint. Again, making sure these things are in place to have control over that. Because even though they would be paying, the longer we can push off expansion, the treatment plant is a good thing for us. With cost doing what they're doing, it only, it's a bad time to be expanding a treatment plant. And we don't need to. We have plenty of capacity at this point. But also better for them. Their bill will be lower. And then we are looking for ways to have economic development incentivize these types of businesses coming to town and the jobs and vitality it brings. So this is an opportunity to also strike on that front.
Will this facility be purchasing treated water from the city? And they will be a pretty big water user, I would imagine.
Yeah, I looked at that. I can pull up the numbers. It's equivalent of, I don't want to misquote it, but it's surprisingly, it's not like as large as like Stover was.
Okay, okay.
Their meter's relatively small. They have really large loads when they need it when they're filling tanks and stuff, but for the most part, a lot of that material is sitting in tanks and fermenting and
Okay.
kind of tied up. So
Sure.
Surprisingly, it was lower than we expected.
Like
It was,
lower than a car wash, or do they reuse?
lower
'cause-
than a car wash, yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
interesting.
Car washes use a lot of water.
I would think they do. Okay.
And we're reusing their water from the brewery in a much more beneficial way.
There we go, yep. Yep. So with this, the reason this is before council, so when we'd had the initial budget discussions, we had a section where we talked about potential partnerships. This was on there, but we didn't know when it was going to hit, depending on when their project comes to fruition. They were able to get everything together, get through design, and it has hit this year. We're now, because we didn't know when it was going to hit, it wasn't budgeted to not tie up budget capacity if it was going to be maybe in 2024. So that's why it's being brought forward for consideration now. I think that's, and then as far as management of the reimbursements, those all run through engineering. So we're out there inspecting all of this to make sure it's put in correctly. And as the expenses are incurred, they would submit for reimbursements. We would manage and track those to make sure that they're eligible, in line with everything we approved, that was built as designed and approved, and then just make sure we don't go over to get up to that cap, because typically their costs are higher than this. This is just to help supplement their expenses.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Scott Murphy or Bill Bell about this?
Great explanation.
Okay.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah. Any public comment on this agenda item? I do not see any, so I would consider a motion. Make sure you speak up and into your mic.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve $120,000 in expenditures to assist with the construction of wastewater pretreatment infrastructure at the new Shelter Distilling headquarters.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. Please vote electronically. And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, item 11, Fiore di Lina, maybe? Preliminary plat. This is council consideration of the Fiore di Lina preliminary plat, which will be presented by planner William Reese.
Thank you and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, and members of the public. I have a brief presentation that I will share. I will share it through Zoom here. And as long as I can get it full screen, there we go. We have before you tonight a preliminary plat for the Fiore di Lina subdivision, which is located on either side of the 6700 road extension that is currently underway. The site is approximately 6.6 acres in size, and it's south of Miami Road. It's zoned R1A Large Estate District and proposes 12 single-family residential lots located on either side of the road, 6 on each side. This property was originally annexed into the city and zoned in 2022 and has gone to the Planning Commission both as a sketch plan and a preliminary plat. This does require approval by the Planning Commission, which was unanimously granted on May 10th and is before you tonight for council approval. According to the future land use map found within our comprehensive plan, this area is listed as residential mixed density low, which provides primarily for single-family homes as well as small amounts of attached residential dwelling units. According to section 1175 of our newly adopted municipal code, the R1A Large Estate District is intended to provide an area of large single-family residential lots with a semi-rural environment. The annexation agreement with this land does allow for a few differences in dimensional standards, which are reflected in the plat notes found on the first page of the plat. These allow for a minimum lot depth of 90 feet and a minimum front setback of 20 feet, as opposed to 150 feet and 25 feet respectively. All other dimensional standards are still in place, such as lot size, width, building height, rear and side setbacks, etc. The agreement also allows for one shared driveway access to 6700 Road to be allowed for every 2 platted lots. This is the subdivision plat itself. Those deviations can be found within these plat notes, as well as the other standard plat notes and certificates that are ordinarily found on all preliminary plats. A more readable version can be found in tonight's packet and is available online. The second page shows the subdivision and proposed lot lines. 6700 Road has already been dedicated through a previous act of the city, and this plat creates 12 residential lots on the 2 remaining outlots on either side of the right-of-way. Staff finds that the preliminary plat is in compliance with the subdivision regulations and the comprehensive plan. The proposal meets the intent of the R1A zoning district, and staff recommends the conditional approval of the Fiore di Lina subdivision preliminary plat with the standard condition that we recommend on all preliminary plats. That concludes my presentation. I believe Scott has a few things he would like to add as well.
Yeah, I think I'll just add, this is the culmination, so if it looks familiar, it's because it is. This is the culmination of, if you remember, over a year ago, we entered into the development agreement with the DeGiulios to purchase the right-of-way for 6700. They've been excellent partners to work with and are the reason we've been able to get to the point we're at with 6700 construction underway. With this, everything is kind of as envisioned in the development agreement. There are some unique conditions. All of that worked with the layout here, so no major changes or surprises as we got deeper into design. And then they'll be working on, some of the utility stuff gets built with the road. Some of the dry utilities are being worked on by the owner. And when those kind of hit the finish line, that's when a final plat would come forward as well. So I think with that, turn it over to Paul if he has anything to add.
Thanks for inviting us. our brother, I think he's on his way to Europe right now, so he's here. But he probably the one that would probably have to ask. You know, he's a general contractor. He had a vision of building something like you'd see in Italy or something like that. So
Mr. DiGiulio? Can I interrupt you for a second? Your audio is really hard to hear, but if you turn your video off, that might allow the internet to better pick up your audio. And it's nice to see your face, but I don't think we need to if we can make the audio work a little better. Do you see the little camera? Perfect. Let's try this again and see if we can hear you a little better.
Does that help?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, I'll start over. So, thanks for inviting me. My brother's not here tonight. I think he's on his way to Europe. But anyway, the concept of, you know, what he's thinking about doing is, what we're thinking about doing is having kind of an Italian style homes when he builds it. Now, I don't know if my brother's going to do it or not. He's still putting, you know, pen to paper to figure out if he can make money. But that's the concept of having kind of an Italian style of subdivision. So we're in the process of getting our part of the utilities put in, the gas and electric, and then the irrigation part too. So we're working on that right now. So it's been a pleasure working with Scott in the city of Montrose. So we appreciate all your help in getting through this process.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And that audio worked a little better, so you're welcome to turn your screen back on if you want us to see each other, and we appreciate you being here.
Okay.
Does council have any questions about this for our planner, our engineer, or our guest?
I have a sort of a statement or question for Scott. So if the benefit of approving this now is that it allows us to locate and direct those utilities to the proper place where the layout of the plot would be, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, so a great part of this partnership and having kind of the plan on the front end has allowed us to put in whatever we need with the road so that when the subdivision comes later, we're not digging or interrupting the traffic flow for one point and not digging up a new road with trench patches on a brand new minor arterial. So, you know, they should be able to do what they need to outside of the road without having to go into the road, and everything's stubbed and ready to go.
Would that include curb cuts for the driveways? Would those
yes.
be done now as well?
Yep, because those are known, and the beauty of it also kind of locks in, just so it's clear for any builder where those will be on the common lot lines, because that was a big part of this, is to try and minimize or eliminate the need to back onto a minor arterial, given the site constraints of the narrow strips of these two lots. And so every two lots has a common driveway with kind of hammerhead style, so that they can turn around. We won't build the driveways, but we'll memorialize those curb cuts with construction of the road. So that's clear going forward.
And if nothing gets constructed for a while, those curb cuts will be fine just being there, leading to no driveway?
Absolutely, yep, just sets us up for the future.
Okay, great. Any other questions from fellow councilors? Then I would accept any public comment on this agenda item. Seeing none, how about a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would move to approve the Fiore di Lena preliminary plat expressly conditioned upon city staff ensuring that all policies, regulations, ordinance, and municipal code provisions are met, and that the applicant adequately addresses all of staff's concerns prior to execution of the final plat. The city staff is not authorized by this approval to execute the final plat prior to all conditions being satisfied.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda tonight is number 12. This is ordinance 2627. This is a second reading of this ordinance. This is an ordinance amending the zoning district designation of .014 acres located at 2370 Air Park Way from I-2 General Industrial District to B3, I have to sneeze, B3 General Commercial District. Planner William Reese.
Thank you again. As you probably recall, Planning Manager Jace Hockwalt brought Ordinance 2627 before Council on first reading. He has since welcomed a new baby, so he has asked me to step in and present this to you for the second reading. The area in question is located at the end of Air Park Way and is a request to rezone approximately 0.14 acres from I-2 to B3. I do have just a very brief presentation to share. If I could please share my screen. Apologies for that. This slide represents a zoning map.
Okay, try that again and
All right.
see if IT's fixed it.
All right, sorry about that. This slide represents a zoning map of the site and the surrounding area. The property owner did just complete and record a boundary line adjustment, which was between two properties of different zoning designations. This rezone would remove any split zoning issues that both parcels clearly have one defined zoning designation each. This map represents a more exact depiction of the rezone area and conforms exactly with the property transferred through the boundary line adjustment process. According to our rezone criteria in section 11.7.12, rezone shall be allowed should the amendment not be adverse to the public health, safety, and welfare, and the amendment is in substantial conformity with the master plan. Staff finds that this rezone complies with these criteria. This is the future land use map, which admittedly shows a little bit of a gap here, but it is defined as an employment center, which is intended to encourage development of planned light industrial, office, and business parks, or locations for manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, etc. Staff finds that the proposal meets the criteria in section 11.7.12 and is in compliance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan and compatible with existing uses. The rezone will fix the split zoning issue from the boundary line adjustment, and staff recommends approval of the rezone to B3 general commercial. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, then we would hold a hearing on this particular one, which is just a little formal. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing and would accept a motion from a fellow counselor.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2627 on second reading as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, item 13, ordinance 2629 on first reading. This is council consideration of an ordinance disconnecting a portion of parcel 376716320003. And again, planner William Reese.
Thank you again. We did briefly discuss ordinance 2629 yesterday during city council work session. It is pretty straightforward, but for the benefit of the public, I'll briefly reiterate the purpose. The property owners between 2335 6450 Road and the vacant property just to the north of that recently underwent a boundary line agreement in order to resolve a boundary dispute due to a fence line. That agreement was recorded and approved. The complicating factor there was the fact that one property was in city limits and the other is in the county. That has resulted in an agreed upon boundary that is slightly off from the official city limits. The area that's highlighted in green in tonight's packet shows the proposed area to de-annex from the city, which is an area of about 0.43 acres. The green area is a part of the northern property, but is technically within city limits. This is about almost a triangle, about 1.5 feet in width on the eastern side and widens up to about 28 feet on the western end of the property. Because the vast majority of the property is outside of city limits and there are no structures or utilities located within this small sliver, it does make sense to de-annex this portion of the property. Staff finds that there would be no negative impact by disconnecting this property, and it will avoid complications from having a property that is both in and out of city limits. And staff recommends approval of Ordinance 2629. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions? It seems pretty straightforward. And there's no revenue implications since the city of Montrose does not collect or receive any property taxes.
Correct.
Okay, then I would accept public comment. Seeing none, a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2629 on first reading as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 14, Resolution 2023-09, and this is council consideration of a resolution setting July 18th, 2023 as the hearing date for the Dry Cedar Creek 2 addition annexation. And again, Planner William Reese.
Thank you again. Resolution 2023-09, as you stated, will set the hearing date for the proposed annexation known as the Dry Cedar Creek 2 addition. This is the proposed annexation schedule. The resolution being voted on tonight is strictly in regards to setting the hearing date for July 18th. The specifics of the annexation are not being voted on at this time. We would also bring this to Planning Commission on June 28th for the zoning aspect of the application. The proposed annexation is a 5.06 acre site within the city's urban growth boundaries, city sewer service area, and water service area, and it is compliant with state requirements that at least 1/6 of the perimeter is contiguous to city limits. The zoning of the surrounding area is mostly R3A medium high density with a little bit of R2 low density. The applicant has requested R3A zoning for this annexation, which is intended to provide an area suitable for single-family homes, duplexes, and multifamily residences with intermediate overall density. This is the annexation plat, which shows the perimeter of the proposal as well as the parts adjacent to existing city limits. The area to the west and Ogden Road to the north are in city limits. A question did come up during the work session regarding if this would still meet contiguity requirements if the road was not considered, and I did the math. The answer is yes. If you were to only consider the contiguity with the western parcel, 26.2% of this perimeter would border existing city limits, which is well above the 1/6 requirement. The actual percentage, which does include Ogden, is 52.01% of the perimeter that borders existing city limits. In summary, the annexation request does meet the contiguity requirements per the state, and the area is urbanizing. An annexation agreement is required and has been signed by the applicant. Due to the small size of the area, an annexation impact report will not be required with this application. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2023-09, which will set the official hearing date for July 18th, 2023. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, does anyone have any questions about the resolution setting the hearing date? Is there any public comment about the resolution setting the hearing date? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2023-09 as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda tonight is item 15. This is the 2023 landfill agreement recommendation. This is council consideration of a contract with Waste Management of Colorado for landfill services. And I will turn it over to Public Works Director Jim Scheid for the whole Scoop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So yeah, we're here to talk about our landfill agreement, which our city crews collect our solid waste or our trash from our city residents. We collect about 10,000 tons per year, and then we need a place to dispose of that waste. And for the last many years, we have used the landfill north of town for that service. And Waste Management is the operator of that landfill and charges the city on a per ton basis for disposing of that solid waste. This year, we did receive 2 proposals in this bid packet. Bruin Waste was actually also submitted and is qualified for this service, which is the first time we've received more than one proposal for this, which is great to see competition. Bruin has grown their operation significantly and has the capacity, which is a big item to handle. But as the bid results showed, there's a significant difference in tipping fees and lower for Waste Management. And so much so that the higher costs of transporting to the landfill, which is a little further out of town than the Bruin facility, but the tipping fees would be higher for Bruin, so the costs don't quite offset each other, and the best value would be for us to continue using Waste Management. And so with that, there's been no other changes since we discussed it at work session. I'd be happy to answer any questions if any have come up.
Thank you very much. Council, does anyone have any questions about our contract with Waste Management? No questions. I would accept public comment about the contract with Waste Management. We've got one. Oh, this is so exciting. Please come forward. Please state your name for the record. And we would love to hear your comments. We usually do a 3-minute limit, which should be plenty of time.
Shouldn't be a problem. Madam Mayor and Council, I appreciate the opportunity to submit to this RFP. I guess maybe an introduction first.
Yeah, please.
I'm Chris Trosper, and I'm with Bruin Waste Management.
Okay.
I've been with Bruin for 23 years now, and we've grown significantly over the last couple of years, especially. We service areas clear out Delta Hotchkiss through our Double J sister company, through Montrose, over Uray, Ridgeway, Silverton, Telluride, Mountain Village, and all of the West End and Cortez and surrounding area also. We've been running our transfer station down here for a little over a year now, and we're about 75 ton per day that we put through that transfer station. I guess one thing that I wanted you guys to see from my view and how I came up with my number was the savings to your guys' trucks every day is about 45 minutes per trip. Each truck does 2 trips a day to the landfill. So that's about 6 hours a day, truck hours savings to the city. Costs on a trucking, any general trucking, is about $90 an hour. So over the year of this contract, that would be a savings in, not direct savings cost, but, well, yeah, it would be direct savings cost, truck time to you guys of $112,000 because of that 6 hours per day savings of going to the landfill. You know, shorter trips, less flat tires at the landfill face, and a few things like that. So just wanted to make sure that you guys saw where I was coming from with the numbers and see if you guys had any questions for me.
I would just say it's really exciting to see that you're in the market, and I look forward to having a nice competitive relationship and seeing what we can do in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments. Were there any other questions from council? Great. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your comments. Any other council member comments or questions? I guess I just want to go back, Jim, to what you said, which was that you did specifically take into consideration the distance that we would have to travel.
Yeah, definitely. I can explain more on that. So I think with this RFP, well, with any of them, we definitely consider best value to the city, and not only, in this case, just the tipping fee. That's kind of our starting point, but there's a lot more to it, and definitely the travel time and the route and the operational expenses are something we consider. So in our case, the savings definitely we would see from a shorter trip would be in that fuel and tires and kind of those direct day-to-day costs, which are significant, but still much less than $6 per ton over the year. That's far more than our cost would be, or an estimated cost towards fuel and tires. We wouldn't have any other reductions in our operating cost from a shorter route. We would see those direct costs, but not an hourly rate reduction in our operation.
Because
cost.
we pay our,
We have the same
our
equipment.
employees to be there the
employees.
same amount of time
So
either way.
We wouldn't see a reduction. And so from that standpoint, financially, it's too much of a difference between the tipping fees to consider them, equal. But where the other advantage would be in capacity. So by a shorter route and saving significant time per truck per day, that would increase our capacity. Now, we don't need that right now, though. So today and this year, our capacity is fine. We're going to be able to keep up with the routes we have currently, fine. But now in the future, that could change that conversation, because that would prevent us from having to add a truck and a driver and other things by shortening those routes and being able to fit more into the existing routes. So at this time, it's not an advantage or something we would consider value, but definitely potential for the future of when we get closer to that time of needing to add another truck, of possibly looking at shorter routes rather than lower tipping fees.
That may flip the balance. And how often do we put out this RFP and have a contract?
This one's only for 1 year. So
Okay.
we will be putting it out next year. We have considered awarding longer-term agreements for this. This was kind of a trial because we knew obviously that Bruin was interested and capable. So we wanted to do a 1-year trial on that. I think it would be beneficial and probably better for the contractors if we offered a longer-term contract. And so that's something we'll consider next year when we put this out.
Okay. And a similar related question, when are we getting our new trash trucks? Still.
That's a
Oh,
great
no.
question.
I'm sorry.
They have been slated through the chassis builder for a slot in late 2024. So I'm hopeful by first quarter of 25,
Wow.
we could see a truck.
Oh, my gosh.
And these trucks have, the original order was in December of 21.
Yeah.
So that's how long it's taking. And at this point, it's not a solid number. They're giving us a guess, and I'm
Okay.
hopeful for the beginning of 25.
Okay. Well, I look forward to resubmitting or putting out an RFP again in a year and seeing if the market dictates a different options for us. It's nice to have options.
I agree.
If there are no other public comment or council questions, then I would accept a motion.
I move to approve a contract with Waste Management of Colorado Incorporated for landfill services as presented.
I'll second that.
Please vote. Everyone got their vote in, right? I think that I'm assuming that since no one voted besides me, that it was a computer glitch.
I voted and saved.
Oh, look at that, you refresh it, and there you go. Maybe I don't know if you're hitting it too soon or something, that's weird. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay. Item 16, this is the Montrose City Hall, which is MCH, Phase 3 Design Contract Award. Council consideration of an award of a contract with Blythe Group in the amount of $145,030 for the design of the facade replacement on City Hall. And again, Public Works Director Jim Scheid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Yeah, another abbreviation, or MCH, is Montrose City Hall. And so, yeah, this is for the continuation of our design on the renovation of City Hall. This is for Phase 3, or the facade portion of the work. Would include removing the fluted block from the exterior, adding windows, and many other things to kind of dress up the exterior of that building. This is Phase 3. Blythe Group has worked with us for Phase 1 and Phase 2 on the interior renovation of the building, and have done a great job, been a great member of our team. So once we begin design, if this is approved, we would immediately move into procuring a CMGC, similar as we have done with other large projects like this, and getting a contractor to work with our design team, and they would work closely with Blythe Group to help keep our design in line with a target budget. We would also have some direct owner costs, geotech engineering, and owner purchases that we would also be beginning to procure. But the goal would be for construction in 2024. So design and everything being set up for that, and with approved budget in 2024, the construction would start next year. We would also engage in stakeholder meetings, and that would include council and our DART group, many of our department heads, in helping to shape some of that early concept level design, and also having community meetings. Once we get to kind of more of a level of design, we have renderings and things we can show. We would have community meetings similar to what we have done with other large projects, and being able to bring in community input throughout that design process. This project was not specifically budgeted for in 2023, but again, with the goal of budgeting for construction in 2024, we are wanting to begin the design process in this year, so that we can be ready for construction process for next year. But there's been no other changes since we talked at work session, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you very much. We have talked about this. I think we talked about it pretty extensively at that one work session. No questions. Then I would accept any public comment on this agenda item. Seeing none, I would ask someone to make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to award a contract to Blythe Group in the amount of $145,030 for the design of the facade replacement on City Hall.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is our last action item for tonight's meeting. It's number 17 on the agenda. It's the 2023 MoveMo Sidewalk Improvements Project Authorization. And this is council consideration of the authorization of expenses for sidewalk improvements as part of the 2023 MoveMo project in the amount of $150,000. We did talk about this extensively at work session previously, but I'm sure that Public Works Manager Jim Scheid will refresh all of our memories.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Yes, so we're asking for authorization of $150,000 for sidewalk improvements as related to our MoveMo project for 2023. This would be utilizing on-call concrete contracts. I should make an abbreviation for that too. Which are used for several different types of concrete work that we do every year, including our 50/50 program, where we cost share with homeowners for sidewalk improvements, or our ADA sidewalk improvements that we do every year, and other city projects such as trail improvements in the park system. And so those contracts would allow us to do this work as well, where we could use one or multiple of the contractors if needed to accomplish this large scale of work, $150,000 in sidewalk work. This $150,000 was included in the capital budget within the MoveMo project, and it was $150,000 of that was set aside for specifically this. This portion of the concrete work would be managed by Public Works, and the sidewalk replacements would be performed on a priority basis until the 150,000 has been consumed, so with a not to exceed of 150,000. The area that we would be focusing on is Zone B in our street improvement map, which is included in the packet, which is mostly on the west side of town. And this is where we would focus for those sidewalk replacements. It's also the zone where we'll be focusing on our grinding of sidewalks. So we've completed a survey this year, and we've hired a contractor to do large-scale grinding for us. So they'll be able to go into that same zone and do extensive concrete improvements. So you'll see a lot of grinding happening and a lot of replacements happening with this. So with that, I would normally say there's been nothing changed since work session, but I did add to the recommendation. I kind of broke down some of the areas where we have other concrete budgeted and we perform typically every year, but I'll explain some of that. It is in the recommendation in the packet, but our total concrete work that we look at for this year would include this proposal, the 150,000, 50/50 sidewalk replacement program and 50,000, ADA accessibility program for 50,000, North 6th Street sidewalk improvement. That's a project that our engineering department is managing, and it'll be also on the west side of town in Zone B. A missing sidewalk link on Townsend. Concrete work that's being done as part of the MoveMo project. Now it's a little confusing, but actually the United companies that we've hired to do our street improvements, there is some concrete work and sidewalk work as part of their scope as well. So as we go through and do a street replacement, we won't leave a crumbled sidewalk next to it. And so part of their scope includes some concrete work as well. And there's about 30,000 of that in there. And then we've also already completed this year some concrete trail improvements in our park system. So the total of all those together is about $450,000 in concrete work that we'll be doing this year. So that's a substantial amount. And during work session, we had discussed the idea of adding more to this proposed 150,000. And that is one reason why I would like to stay at 150,000 to make sure that we can accomplish that much. We, in the past, have had a hard time getting contractors to show up for concrete work. So I'm optimistic about this year. It does look good, and our contractors seem to be very interested and eager. So I do feel like the 150 is doable, but I'd like to use this as a good test year and see how it goes before we commit to more. And possibly next year we could increase the amount if we feel like if we're able to accomplish this.
Thank you. Thank you for including the additional sidewalk work because, as you know, that was a large part of our discussion at work session was to understand that this 150,000 was not all the sidewalk work being done. It was a piece of it. And I think that including that right here will help the public who might be interested in looking up, how much we spend on sidewalks as well. It may just be me and my electronic packet, but I am not seeing the attachment with the map. And if that got left off, can we get it in for the packet if someone goes to look at it? Or if it's just me? Is anyone else seeing the map? I think we get pretty familiar to the map and how you have it gridded out, but can you just describe where that area is where they'll see sidewalks?
Yeah, so the west side of town is probably the best explanation. It's pretty much Townsend west, probably with the exclusion of Cobble Creek. So it's the northern and western side of the city. And that's only one of 8 zones. So we have 8 zones throughout town that we focus on for different improvements, being sidewalks in this case, or crack sealing or patching. We focus on a different zone every year. And so Zone B in this case is this year's sidewalk improvement zone.
So that's that same street map that we see a lot and is included in a lot of packets that breaks it down into zones.
It is on the city website as well under our Streets Division tab if anybody wants to find it there.
Perfect.
But I do believe it was in the packet for the work session at least. So, and I know it was in one packet.
Okay.
It was in our packet with the work session. It is not, however, in the packet for this meeting.
Okay. Any public comment about spending money on sidewalks? Oh, questions. I'm so sorry.
Am I part of the public?
You can be whatever you want.
I know my chair's kind of down. You don't see me. Jim, just for clarification, when you were talking about grinding, you're basically where you have joints that are 2 elevations. You're you're tapering that down.
Yeah, that's correct. So we had hired a contractor to do a survey, and they were able to determine any imperfection in the sidewalk. So everywhere there's a joint in the sidewalk, and one of them may be heaved up slightly higher than the other one, we were able to define it down to anything more than a 1/4 inch of difference. So if there's anything that's a 1/4 inch or more different from the slab right next to it, was documented in that survey. And so then we were able to then have them sort those out into what's replaced, what needs to be replaced and what can be ground down. And they would then take that 1/4 inch difference and grind it to where it's flush. And that way the sidewalk is a smooth transition throughout.
And I would point out that if it is larger than an inch or so in difference, then we would grind off too much of it to maintain structural integrity, and that would be replaced.
Exactly. Yep.
I always thought it was cool to see the sidewalks ground down because you could see all the little, like, fossils of the concrete. But anyway.
Jim, have we looked at the possibility of that jacking up the lower parts to the sidewalks instead of grinding them down or replacing them totally?
Yeah, we have looked at that. In a lot of cases, it's not as cost effective to do one, in areas where maybe it can't be ground and it also wouldn't make sense to replace it. It could be done, but when we're doing it throughout an entire neighborhood, it's more cost effective to grind it than it is to jack them up.
Any other questions from council about sidewalks? Okay, then I'll accept public comment. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to authorize expenses for sidewalk improvemements as part of the 2023 MoveMo project in the amount of $150,000 as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that motion passes unanimously. So that concludes the action items for tonight's meeting, and we'll now move on to item 18, which is staff reports. Are there any city staff who need to update council on anything?
I have one update. It's a bit tardy, but I wanted to let City Council know that Will Reese in our planning department took the test to become a certified planner. It is called the AICP, and he quietly registered to take this test and passed it, of course, with flying colors. And it's a significant accomplishment for our planning department to have another AICP certified planner. Jace Hockwell, our planning manager, is also AICP certified. And so I'd like to congratulate Will Reese and let you know about that accomplishment in our planning division.
Outstanding.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Good job.
Any other staff updates or reports about anything? Does council have any questions for staff about something they were hoping to hear an update about? Okay. Staff, city council comments, anything?
Well, I was just
Yeah.
going to ask is, now that he has the certifications, do you have to take continuing classes to maintain that certification, or do you get it and that's it?
Yes, I do have to take continuing classes as well as pay a fee to the national organization, so I get the privilege of paying them. Yeah.
But you get fancy letters behind your name now.
I do, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Any other council comments or questions for us tonight? Anything? Okay, then a motion to adjourn would be accepted.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved by acclamation, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone who came and watched our council meeting tonight. If there was something you wanted to talk to us about or a question you had, just come on forward. We are turning off the cameras and the mic, but we welcome you to come talk to us. So thanks for coming out to our meeting tonight.